Hello and welcome to another episode of More Thoughts. My name is ChaosMole, and today we have to talk about Terra Nil, a game which I have been looking forward to a certain degree because I wasn't really sure what the game was. I played the demo, I think a year or even 2 years ago, and I left with mixed feelings regarding the game. Now, I finally was able to play the full release of the game, and my thoughts to it are still mixed. So, first things first, this game is not a city builder. This game is not a management game. It's a puzzle game. It's a puzzle game where you have limited resources to transform a wasteland into, well, not so wasteland thing, right? You have to make it so that the flora and the fauna is basically regrowing, and then when you are done with everything, you have to get the hell out of there and basically go to the next area, which needs some good old cleaning. And it's not like a full-on puzzle game. Like, the game is not shoehorning you into one way to do this, right? It's not like, oh, you didn't build building A before you did building C. Well, sucks to be you, please try again. That is not happening here. Like, the game is telling you exactly, like, those are your resources. You can see in the top left corner the little leaves. And those are the buildings you have at your disposal. Do whatever you like to make it happen and to completely scrub the planet from the toxin and make it bloom again, right? And the game is giving you some really good tutorials at the beginning to make you understand what you are doing. It's not slow, and it still leaves you, even in the tutorial, relatively speaking, a lot of freedom to do whatever you like. And then it will unlock more buildings for you. It will unlock that you have to like take care of temperature, and of course later on you have to bring back the animals into the ecosystem you have just created. But again, it's all a puzzle more or less, and not necessarily a management game or a building game. Yes, you do build stuff, and I think one of the greatest accomplishments of this game is how pretty it is, and also that you are creating your own ecosystem. You decide where the rivers are. You decide where the swamps are. It's a bit like a god game without having to take care of the pesky humans who have, well, done this to the planet in the first place, probably. But it gives you a lot of freedom to just explore nature and to basically build your own, well, ecosystem. But that's what this game is. And if you are like, okay, can you go a little bit more into detail? Well, there isn't really much. It's basically the same approach on every map. You have distinct buildings for the distinct ecosystem you are in, which is like a frozen wasteland, or you have like a tropical wasteland, or you just have your normal like Middle America, Middle European forest area, which you can see here in the temperatured area you can see here in the background. And then you have buildings which are designed for this climate. Like in this area, it's clear that you're working with rivers, that you are working with like a lot of water, and you're just regrowing the forest and the riverbanks around you. Whereas in the frozen tundra, you cannot really do that, right? You cannot just spray water everywhere and then regrow that area because, well, it's minus 12 degrees Celsius and everything will just freeze. So you have to think about different way to do it here. You have to work with lava in that area, and then you have to like basically destroy some of the geysers to free that lava, and you have to think about how you have like where you put your electricity to power your facilities and all that. So it's a little bit of like rethinking how you do something, but it's not a complete change of your play style. It's a lot of graphical changes, but not so much your playstyle itself. But it also gets more and more complicated. Like at the beginning, You can see me right here actually becoming a little bit more complicated. Like at the beginning, you were just regrowing the greenery. But then you were starting to say, okay, I also want to have flowers. Or maybe this area should become a wetlands. And later on, you can have beaches. And you can have like forests or rainforests. And they all need different things to work out. And you should also think a little bit on where you want to put it. Because A, you want to have like animals who come back into the area, and a lot of the animals need multiple biomes to be pretty close to each other. So let's say a wolf needs, yes, a forest biome, duh, but it also needs deers, and the deers only want to be in the greenery biome. So you have to have that relatively close to each other, and you have to think about like, okay, which biomes make sense to have them close to each other. Like in another mission, which I can show you here in a second, you are in a tropical area, right? And that means you have the ocean, but you also have your beaches, your mangoes, and then you have your mangroves, not mangoes, mangroves. And then you also have your rainforests, and you kind of have to make it work. And you might think, okay, so I'm just slapping it together, fill up the map with all my buildings, if I have enough resources, of course, and then just make the stuff grow, right? And the answer is no. No, it's not that easy, because there is another thing you have to consider, and it's actually a pretty cool thing they're doing, because after you are done, you have to reconsider how to remove all the items you have, right? Like when you are looking at this, you will realize that, give me just a second here, that is on me being a dingus. There you go, sorry for that. That you basically now have to remove all the buildings you have been building. Building. You have been builded? All the buildings have been removed from the map. You get what I mean, right? And you have to do that with drones. And the drones are not just flying around and picking up all the buildings and then you are done with it. No. The drones have specific move abilities they have to utilize to really remove all the items. Like in this level, you can see here, this is the tropical level. As you can see, I'm still trying to figure out how the whole tropical stuff works. You have to use a monorail, but the monorails can only be built on rocks, and there are not a lot of rocks here. So you have to move around rocks, or you have to create new rocks close to the beach so that you can then build the monorail stations, which you then can utilize to remove all the buildings on the map. And that makes you think. It's a completely different thought process. Now you're not thinking about, okay, how do I utilize my buildings in the best way? But now you have to think about, how can I debuild most of the buildings on the map? And I can do that in one go. And you just realize how much you have maybe screwed it up. Right? Like you try to optimize like certain building areas, and you try to get as much money as possible out of it, but you realize that maybe it is so far away from all your other buildings and stones and monorails that it gave you a lot of money when you did the whole building process, but now when you have to remove everything from the map, it is actually quite a pain in the ass to do so. So again, there's a lot of thinking and thinking ahead of it, but don't you worry, if you just want to relax, just build your own ecosystems, your own biomes, this game has it. There's basically a gardener mode, they call it, where you barely have any limitations, or there's even a Zen mode, which puts no limitations on you whatsoever, and you can just build as ever you like and create your own beautiful areas, if you so desire, without having to think about any of the limitations this game is giving you, right? And I think they did a pretty good job on that. Now, with that said, again, this is not a management game. This is not a builder game or a city builder game. This is a puzzle game where you have to build certain buildings to make it work, and you have to think on how to do it. But there are a few things I have to point out. First things first, this game is relatively short. It will probably take you about 16 hours at best to finish this game, because the game has 8 missions, 4 missions or 4 islands, and when you are done with finishing all the 4 islands, you are unlocking the alternative map of that island. So yeah, you have 4 islands, and an island takes about an hour and a half. Like, even if you were taking it slow, it would not take you that long. So yeah, the game is relatively short. And yeah, then of course you can decide that you just want to go back into an island and do it again. And this time you are going more for the aesthetics instead of just winning the map. But it is still a relatively short game, and it does cost $25. So I can see that some people say, whoa, that's a lot of money for only 16 hours of gameplay. I don't know if I want that, right? And I totally agree. If you are somebody like that, wait for a sale. If that is not worth your money because you need more playtime, wait for a sale. Me, personally, I really enjoyed my time with it. I'm somebody who values quality time more than just quantity, right? But there are a few things I want to point out. First things first, performance. This is a slow, cozy game, but there's some moments where the game is lagging a little bit, especially when you are building a new biome. The FPS is definitely going to shit. So that's the thing which is happening. If that annoys you sometimes, beware of it, right? And the game is sometimes not really great in explaining to you how things work. And that would be okay if there wouldn't be a limitation with the resources. Like, I didn't know how to get the mangroves, right? I didn't know that basically the wetlands and the oceans have to be combined to get that. And you cannot easily fix a biome. So let's say you have a huge area you want to transform into a biome, but you didn't know what it will do, then you are stuck with it. Like, this right here is a perfect example. I first had the wetlands, didn't know that it needs the ocean to make it actually the biome I need. Thankfully, there was then an item which allowed me to create the mangrove biome. But I later on also realized that this area would have been perfect to grow my jungle. So I managed to get my jungle through other means, but I would have been pretty unhappy if that was the decision which screwed me over. And again, I cannot just reset it. The only way to reset it is to reset the map. So the game can be unforgiving, which I understand because they want you to think ahead, but they sometimes don't tell you all the details. On the first mission, you are unlocking a research center, and that will upgrade some of your buildings, like the drill, which is then becoming a laser. And I think what we figured out is that the laser is not polluting the tiles where the drill is going. So normally when you send out the drill, it will pollute all the tiles on its way to its destination. With the laser, that doesn't happen anymore. But the game is not telling you. It still actually tells you, yes, by the way, this will pollute the tiles around it. I was like, huh, but doesn't anymore, right? It definitely misses like some information. The videos are really helpful, and most of the time you will understand what it does, but it needs some experimenting. And the red reset button you see here in the middle of the screen will be your friend. You will utilize that now and then. So could be a little bit more detailed sometimes on what a building does when it gets combined with other buildings. I know this is the game probably just wanting you to try things, but because you cannot just reset all the time, you can only reset the last step you did. You have to be careful not to screw yourself over. But besides that, I think the game is doing exactly what it is supposed to do. I know this sounds weird, and I saw some other reviews where people complained that the game doesn't know what it wants to be. But for me personally, after playing this game for multiple hours, I think the game knows exactly what it wants to be. It's a puzzle game with some sort of resource you have to manage a little bit, and which also wants to create like beautiful biomes and ecosystems. And that's what the game is. Nothing more, nothing less. So if you expected like some kind of, I don't know, city skylines, then that's not what the game wants to be at all. And again, the only thing I have to point out is it's a short game. It's fun. It's quality time. And I really enjoy like seeing those biomes grow, and when you are just coming into a completely polluted area and you slowly clean it up, it makes you happy. The one last thing I would maybe want later on is like a recap, where the game is showing you a quick replay of what you did, like how it started out, and then just goes through it super quickly to make like a snappy replay of your accomplishment, right? But beyond that, I recommend the game if you love some puzzle games where you are cleaning up the environment and you have to think how you do it. And you are limited by some of the resources if you are not playing in the Zen mode or the easier mode. Then of course you don't have to think too much about the resources at all. But the only thing, as I said before, is it worth the $25 price tag for you? And that's something I cannot answer. That's something you have to know because, well, you know yourself best on if you will enjoy a game with that amount of content for that amount of money, right? But with that said, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed my mole thoughts and also like the video. We are planning to do much more strategy management and city building games here on the channel. The Great War is actually coming up. Wow, that's a contrast to what we just did here. That is coming up as a review very soon. And there are much more games in the following weeks, months, and years here on the channel. So make sure to subscribe. With that said, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time.